So hey guys, today we're talking about Promethean Princess Bestower of Flames, and I have no idea uh, how this is memorable at all, so we will simply call this card Promethean Princess going forward. So Promethean Princess is actually a pretty insane card to an extent. So if we just go over the effects real fast, you cannot special summon monsters except for fire monsters. You can only use each of the following effects of Promethean Princess, Bestower of Flames, once per turn. During your main phase, you can special one fire monster from your graveyard. If a monster is a special summon to your opponent's field while this card is in your graveyard, except during the damage step, you can target one fire monster you control and one monster your opponent controls, destroy them, and if you do, special summon this card. So a few notable things. Your opponent needs this special summon to trigger this, so that will be the trigger. And special summoning in general is pretty common in most decks, with very few exceptions. There are some decks that don't special summon that much, but they will typically still special summon unless you're playing something like a Fluandries, I guess, right? In which case, this card, not that great, but at the same time, it's not that bad. And the reason is, this card, this effect is a graveyard effect, meaning Promethean Princess will be in your graveyard, so ideally you would have like some other fire monster on your field that does something, but doesn't necessarily require like Promethean Princess at all. Because Promethean Princess also has the ability to summon a fire monster. It's relatively easy to link off if you make it. Notably, the best part of this card is that this is interruption without requiring this card to be on your field, but it does still have the downside of requiring you to control a fire monster of some sort. But this also has the benefit of how this card actually works. So, if a monster is special summoned to your opponent's field, will be the trigger first off, right? And then you can target a fire monster you control and one monster your opponent controls. So the monster doesn't even have to be the special summoned one. So you can just destroy any monster your opponent controls. So if it was normal summon, you can still destroy it. And sometimes that's relevant, sometimes it's not. But anyways, the targeting is the cost, as you can see here. And this starts a chain, as you can see with this colon here. Destroy them, and if you do, special summon this card. So the destroy part is the part it's going to attempt first, and then the special summon. And it says destroy them, and if you do. Meaning, if you do not destroy the fire monster on your field, it will not summon Promethean Princess, so that's a potential way to use this card. So if you don't destroy your fire monster, if it maybe like dodges the destruction, or if it's protected from destruction, then Promethean Princess would simply just destroy your opponent's card. So that's a potential way to use this card, and the reason you might want to do this is because you cannot special summon monsters except for fire monsters while Promethean Princess is on your field. So maybe you don't want Promethean Princess on your field because of that. But like, assuming you don't have to go and do and use Promethean Princess in this kind of roundabout way, you can also just special summon Promethean Princess, and Promethean Princess will keep coming back, and you'll be able to keep linking off Promethean Princess. So that is a possible way for you to play it, because Promethean Princess will not banish itself or anything when it leaves the field. It is just this condition. So if you are playing a Here Fire deck, then like a one attribute deck, you know, and it's all fire monsters or majority fire monsters, Promethean Princess will go completely crazy, because you can just keep bringing back your fire monsters, and you'll just keep recycling and keep popping your opponent's cards, and this is pretty annoying to deal with, like, over an entire duel, right? The more this triggers, the more mileage you'll get, right? And interestingly enough, a lot of the fire link monsters are actually generic to make, so this is pretty easy to make. So you only require 2+ effect monsters, so you can even go like make early, and then you can summon back early after you link off early for Promethean Princess, and that will actually help you out in this kind of combo, because early is not really good in the EMZ, right? So you can summon early to the EMZ and then summon Promethean Princess and then reposition early to main monster zone, and then you can link off Promethean Princess for whatever. And there are actually a bunch of decent targets for like in terms of fire link monsters. So the notable ones are like Nightmare Phoenix is not good for end board, but this is an option if you need to. Sprite Elf is decent because if you summon back early, you like Sprite Elf summon back early, and then you have like 2 fire monsters you can potentially pop for the effect of Promethean Princess. But if we're thinking about the long term, I don't know how you're moving Promethean Princess from the field if you're doing it like this, but if we link summon like early, and then we have a 3rd monster, Promethean Princess, then we can like Sprite Elf, so that's just any 3 effect monsters on the board, you can do this. And then Sprite Elf can bring back early, so then you have Sprite Elf early, and then trigger for Bestower is pretty simple. If your opponent special summons, then you could pop early, summon back early with early's own effect. If it is destroyed, it special summons itself. So that is technically like techable into a bunch of different combos, potentially. So I think that's interesting, and you can like obviously link off for like Kita and stuff like that. Maybe usable in Fire Fist. I don't know. They sound like they'd be a lot of fire monsters. You can link off into Amphibious Swarmship Abla Whale as well. So this is pretty interesting. If this card is destroyed, you can target a link 3 or lower monster in either graveyard, special summon it, so maybe this summons early, or something like that if you were to like link off 2 effects into early, summon Promethean Princess, and then Promethean Princess summon early, summon Ambla Whale, and then Ambla Whale getting popped can do this, right? And then, yeah. I don't know exactly what this would be techable into, but it's an idea, that's for sure. But the primary thing about Promethean Princess is, of course, that just not requiring this to be on your field and being in the graveyard puts it like in the same kind of category of like interaction as like your Ishizu cards. So yeah. So right now we just have Mudora Keldo, but this is essentially the same kind of thing as Keldo and Mudora, potentially, right? Where it's really annoying because it's interaction in the graveyard, and those kinds of cards are typically pretty strong, even more so when your opponent has a full end board, right? So like, for example, we also have Rika Princess. Rika Princess can activate in the graveyard while you control a Rika monster, and you can just tribute a plant monster, negate an effect that is specifically a monster effect, right? Yeah. So if you think about it, like just traditionally, if you have like a full field, right? You might have like 4 or 5, and then like 1 or 2 back rows, so like 7 pieces of interaction, right? And then you can't fit any more onto your board, but if you could start putting cards into the graveyard with interactions, that's even harder to deal with, so that would be like an 8th card. But this is extra interesting in that if your board still does get broken, you actually won't be able to use Promethean Princess that well, because you do need to control a fire monster. But that, I mean, there is still also the idea of this. So we could do, for example, Reproducus. So link to Reproducus, and then we declare Worm, and we make Synchro 10. Of course, the one we're making in this case is Evil Longwan, right? So you could do Evil Longwan, and then you can summon back Evil Longwan, and then assuming you have another monster, well, this is a fire, of course, so assuming you have another monster that's on field, aside from this one, we can probably link summon. Well, we can link off Bestower of Flames with that monster, and then we can do whatever. It's fine. So like in this case, the Sprite Elf play is perfectly fine, and then we can just pop Sword Soul, Sinister, Sovereign, King Long One here. Whenever we're done with it, and then we can summon it back the next turn with Promethean Princess. Like, just as an idea, so in this line that I'm thinking of doing, I think the Sprite Elf line might be okay. So if we have early as well, that's definitely worth. So early Elf, but maybe early Elf isn't as doable. So maybe then it is more worth doing the Ambler Whale, making it like more annoying for our opponent to go for lethal. But like, if our opponent's cards don't destroy, then we can't use Ambler Whale's effect to destroy a card on the field. So, maybe that's not necessarily the play. Maybe it'll take time to figure it out. But I mean, like, worst case scenario, you might like do a bit of a Maple Maiden, you know, make everything fire. I mean, that might be relevant, that might be helpful. Not 100% certain. But overall, this type of interaction is actually somewhat rare already, right? So, before we had, like, the Ishizu cards, the only thing we had would be, like, Rika Princess, I think. In terms of just a card that actually, like, interacts in the graveyard, I wouldn't count anything like Necroworld Banshee, because the Banshee doesn't directly interact. Like, it turns all your opponent's cards to zombies, sure, but this interaction can be completely useless if we're just considering this by itself. Aside from that, this can trigger Doom King, which is not even necessary, but it's just something you do when you have the opportunity, you know? That not exactly what I would call the optimal way to use Banshee, but definitely a way to use Banshee, I suppose, right? So, yeah. Promethean Princess, it might not be insane, like, now, but it has the opportunity to become pretty insane later. The issue right now that I'm finding is, well, maybe it's a research issue, but I don't know what fire monster I would want on my end board that I can easily access. But if there was one, like, for example, I don't know. But what would be good? Something on my end board. Maybe like Final Sigma technically would not be that bad, because this is not affected by Promethean Princess, meaning as long as I have Final Sigma, you have to find a way to out Final Sigma, and then Promethean Princess will destroy your card, right? There's also the idea of like getting Lava Golems. If you get Lava Golems with this in your graveyard, you still have a point of interaction that's hard to deal with because it's in the graveyard. And for example, if my opponent like Lava Golems me, they would still have to contest with Promethean Princess, assuming like they're doing the kind of play I'm expecting. So the rank 8 deck that just tries to board break and turbo out Numeron Dragon, like that might struggle a bit because I'd be able to destroy their Numeron Dragon as long as I still control the Lava Golem, because it is a fire monster I can destroy with Promethean Princess, and then I can potentially do some board rebuilding with this. So, I don't know. Maybe it is insane right now, but just no one's playing it. But it does definitely have the potential to be pretty strong under the right circumstances. But just to go over a few more things. The effect to special summon is mandatory. It is not optional, so as far as I can tell, you cannot just extra foolish burial Promethean Princess to get this as like a pop. It seems you have to actually properly summon this. And you do need a fire monster on the field. And you probably want a way to get this off your field, like a few times. It might be necessary because you'll just get locked. But at the same time, it is optional to use the effect to destroy and special summon it, so maybe you don't need any way to kind of get this off your field. So, yeah. Not 100% certain, but yeah, this definitely has the potential to be a very useful card or a very good card. It's just finding the right place for this, I guess. But I mean, it's already pretty close with like early. So if you were to, for example, let's say, just as a very basic kind of endboard, we have like Jacko Bolan. So we have Jacko Bolan, we have Sprite Elf, and then we have however you spell this, like this, right? Early. So let's say we go ahead and do that line I said before, and let's say we have Zombie World on the field for me, because why wouldn't I? So we have pretty simple endboard here. We have Jacko Bolan, we have Sprite Elf, Pit Knight early, and Promethean Princess Bestower of Flames. So we just have some bodies that we got on the field, so we only need to get 3 on the field. So then we will link summon into early, Promethean Princess summon back early, and then we'll link off these 2 for Sprite Elf. And we will have just Zombie World and Jacko Bolan as our endboard, okay? So here we have a lot of different pieces of interaction, a lot of different moving parts. So first things first is we're going to wait for our opponent to control a monster, and when that condition is met, we can then use Sprite Elf to summon back early, and then we'll probably summon early to a zone where it points to Jacko Bolan. And now we will wait for our opponent to do something we care about. And let's say they do special summon a monster, then we'll have the option to Promethean Princess, targeting Jacko Bolan to destroy, and then one of our opponent's cards. And let's assume they do have something in the graveyard for us to target with Jacko Bolan, then we can chain to Jacko Bolan to Promethean Princess effect, so that our Jacko Bolan will not get destroyed, and it'll simply dodge the destruction and come back during the end phase, and our opponent will take one of their monsters from the graveyard, and it will be banished when it leaves the field. So, I mean, like, worst case for our opponent, it could be something like pivotal to them, like an Eldlick that's in the graveyard, and then if they manage to remove their Eldlick, they won't really get their Eldlick back, which is nice. Just kind of for example, but yeah, whatever. So let's say we get their monster, and then we destroy their monster. We're doing pretty good here as well. So another idea might be to maybe like IP link off the Promethean after we summon it, but there are no good targets as of currently. I don't think so, at least, right? So any Firelink monsters, would they be worth like quick synchroing into on your opponent's turn? I don't think any of these are really good for this, so no, not really. The best one might be Nightmare Phoenix, and that's saying something, I guess. So that play is not completely there, but if we had some way to send like Promethean Princess as cost for something, that might not be bad either. So like, actually, then if you were playing like Lair of Darkness, you would always have tribute fodder for your virus cards. So you can just keep tributing Promethean Princess, and that might be good, except if you use Lair specifically, then this is no longer a fire monster, and it's a dark monster, and that includes everything on your field, meaning all of your monsters are dark, so you have no fire monsters whatsoever to target with Promethean Princess's effect, so it would never summon itself or pop any cards, and it becomes useless cardboard. So, I guess that's a bit of an issue, so whatever, I guess. But the fact that all 3 of these, for example, are generic makes this pretty playable. So right now I'm just considering what you can do, and I don't know. But just the general idea that this will always be pretty strong if we have like some really strong fire monsters. So the one example I was using earlier was simply more or less Evil Long One. this has like two pieces of interaction tied to it. It banishes one of your opponent's special summon monsters and banishes a spell trap. And of course, you can combine this with early. So you have a monster negate and then Promethean Princess to pop a special summon monster, making this fairly hard to play through. And Sprite Elf, I guess, can also make one of these guys, probably this one, untargetable, honestly. You might have some good targets with Sprite Elf, and that's just more mileage you can get from this. So, if the conditions are met, this causes like a pretty nasty kind of resource loop, honestly. So, speaking of which, actually, I think it might be worth checking this just to make sure. If another card you control would be destroyed by a card effect. You could technically Hugin Protect, for example, to protect whatever fire monster you have, as well. Protecting it from Bestower of Flames. So, I mean, there are ideas. Well, I'm not sure about the exact viability of this right now, but I'll probably try this card out more whenever the rest of the Rescue Ace cards drop. So yeah, that's all I've got for you guys today. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.